Your grounding, as I'm using that language, is your understanding of life. It's your connection to life. It's how life occurs to you, what life looks like to you, and the relationship with life that evolves out of that understanding. And so we all have a grounding. And it's not so much more grounding or less grounding, though we sometimes use language like that in terms of deeper grounding. It's a deeper grounding in an understanding of what's really going on. So deeper, in this case, just means more accurate. And that's kind of the game we're in. It's like trying to get a more accurate sense of what's really going on. And one of the fundamental shifts between what most people's grounding in the world is and the grounding that we talk about here is the inside-out nature of human experience. Is that most people in the world think that experience happens out there, and I take it in and I interpret it and then I do something with it. So it's an outside in. What happens out here creates my experience in here, and then I can filter it and I can mess with it a little and I can change my thinking about it sometimes and do stuff with it, but it's essentially coming at me. I'm doing what I do with it and then I'm responding to it. And so the mind is like a camera with different filters that I can put on it. What the inside-out understanding proposes, points to, what I have come to see is true, is that the mind is more of a projector than a camera. That actually thought comes into mind, gets projected out into the world, and then I get to see it like sitting in the movie. And then I experience it as if it's happening to me that way. But it's not there until I think it. So one of the ways that first occurred to me, how different that was I was thinking about denial. Right? About being in denial. Oh, you know what? You know, if you don't think about the problems, you're in denial. Well, if the mind is a projector, that's not true. When I'm not thinking about it, it doesn't exist. It exists because of thought. Now, this can easily start getting really metaphysical and really better done over a pint after the seminar. Do you know what I mean? In other words, I wouldn't want this to start, somebody to go, yes, but blah, blah, blah. I can't speak to it at that level. I can speak to it as best I can, sort of experientially, how I experience it, and metaphorically as it looks to me. And that's what I've got. So that would be an example of how my grounding shifted. I was an NLP expert. I was, one of the leading trainers in the field. And because my grounding was the mind as a camera, I got very good at handling that camera. I was an expert in cameras and what kind of lenses you could have and which lenses were most useful to film this kind of situation as opposed to that kind of situation, and what angles to look at birth from, and what angles to look at death from, and what angles to look at business from, and I became an expert photographer. And that all flowed out of my grounding. When I saw for myself, and the first thing that I really saw was that well-being was our nature. That it wasn't an achievement, that it wasn't a place to get to, that we were born into it. Suddenly, a lot of the stuff that was a great skill to have when my grounding made it look like life happens to us just went out the window. It was like, why would I do that? If it doesn't even exist until I think it. If I'm not away from my well-being until I project myself away from my well-being, why would I need all these camera skills? There's nothing to photograph. And so as my grounding changed, naturally out of that, my behavior changed. I didn't try to change my behavior to be more principally. It was just the world didn't look like that to me, so why would I do that? So that was a shift in grounding. So what's going to happen over the course of our time together, and long after our time together is through, if you keep in this conversation, is you will see things. The world will not look to you as it looked to you before you came. You will see things more clearly. You will see things more deeply. You'll have the slap in the forehead moments and the, Holy fucking Mother of God moments. I've been just told, Terry told me that that's now become an acronym. You know, HFMOG.com. You know, but you know, and that will happen. And then you won't need to work on changing your behavior, because your behavior will automatically change because the world occurs to you differently. And so that's why I think there's an incredible value in talking about grounding, focusing on grounding, and bringing the conversation back to grounding again and again and again. And what I'll be sharing with you is my grounding, whether I want to or not. And what you'll be sharing with your clients is your grounding. And fortunately, and this is the bit that you may or may not think, your grounding is deeper right now than 9/10 of humanity. Now, that means it's shallower than the other 10th, if you want to feel bad. I mean, you know, you know, you still suck at what you suck at. I mean, I'm not saying you're great, you know, but what you already see, what brought you here. You wouldn't come here, I don't think, I hope nobody would come here without having been touched by this at some level, without glimpsing something true. Right? That's why we don't go out and sell it. Because it would be awful if somebody came because we talked them into it. Right? So whatever it is that brought you here is your grounding, and that grounding will be enough to help some people with your coaching to make a difference to them. As your grounding deepens, as you see this at deeper and deeper levels, as you see more and more of what's really going on behind the curtain, there'll be that many more people that your presence, your grounding will impact.